Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Let's Talk Native Plants series hosted by the Western New York Native Plants Collaborative. The Native Plants Collaborative is a group of professionals whose mission is to increase the use of plants native to our region. We do this by facilitating native plant production and increasing demand for native plants through public education, like this conversation, for example, and influencing policymakers. I'm Molly Vendura, a landscape architect, and today we are joined by Jay Burney. Jay is a writer, photographer, media producer, and founder of Greenwatch, the Learning Sustainability Campaign, and the Friends of Times Beach Nature Preserve. Jay is also a founding member of the Western New York Native Plants Collaborative, our Outer Harbor Coalition, and the Niagara River Greenway Pollinator Partnership. Welcome, Jay.
Hey, thanks, Molly. Good to see you.
You too. So how about, would you like to tell us a little more about your roles with some of our local conservation organizations?
Sure. Well, I start from, I'm a special project director of a not-for-profit, New York State not-for-profit called the Pollinator Conservation Association. What we do is we just do a lot of different kinds of projects. We do advocacy, we do education, we do installations of sites, and out of that comes a lot of relationships. And you mentioned one, which is called the Niagara River Greenway Pollinator Partnership. We are partnering with the Niagara River Greenway, and we bring together organizations and agencies and individuals, and we talk about conservation from the viewpoint of a pollinator. And that might seem odd because we talk about conservation that is all over the place. And we look at birds, we look at soils, we look at water, we look at watersheds, but we start from the eyes of the pollinator because that's a really easy way to start talking about how important conservation is and how important things like biodiversity are and really how they work. So this partnership is just a great opportunity to get together with people and talk about views and ideas and strategies and planning. And it's really an important initiative of the Pollinator Conservation Association. So that's one thing we do. It's a pretty big thing. The Outer Harbor Coalition, you asked about that. I'm, as you mentioned, founder of Friends of Times Beach Nature Preserve. And several years ago, the state, through the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation, announced that they were going to build a new community on the Outer Harbor, which included a lot of privatization, condos, including right around the nature preserve. Nature Preserve is a very precious place, the Times Beach Nature Preserve. It's really the anchor for the Niagara River, globally significant, important bird area. And it's just full of nature. We've got so many great things. There are migrating birds, migrating butterflies. So when they announced that they were going to do this project to develop the communities to sprawl in the Outer Harbor, we helped found the Our Outer Harbor Coalition, start looking at the Outer Harbor from a different perspective. And our perspective is green, public. That's the most important part of it. We want to keep public space public, because almost all of it is owned by the public. And the privatization thing, the condo thing, would have been making it private, which doesn't make it accessible to everyone, and we think it should be. So among other things, our coalition, the Our Outer Harbor Coalition, is proposing a world-class park on the Outer Harbor. And that's just one of the things we do. We've also been involved in some lawsuits. We challenged a development there called Queen City Landing, which was a tall glass tower building right on the waterfront, and the impact on birds and biodiversity and traffic and would have been strong. Plus the fact is it's a kind of a scary place, the Outer Harbor. We've had storms recently, historic high water levels in the lakes, big storms, probably climate change driven, done a lot of damage to places like Times Beach and other places on the Outer Harbor. So we're concerned about how to make the Outer Harbor more resilient, and we don't think condos and sprawl is the best way to do that. This flower that we're looking at here is a really neat flower. It's called the spotted bee balm, and it's a kind of a rare flower. You don't see it much in Erie County. You see it around the Great Lakes. It's in a little sand duney area on the Outer Harbor. It's one of the places near the Bell Slip, which we call the Bell Slip Nature Preserve, which we're trying to save because of plants like this. I know I'm talking a lot, but you've got these beautiful pictures to talk about.
I know they are beautiful. Did you take these pictures?
I did take the pictures, yeah. I'm a photographer, I'm a video maker. I have been most of my life, and I'm not the best photographer, but I get some good stuff. This right here is a scarlet tanager. It's one of the birds that are neotropical migrants. They come from Central America, South America. They come through here in incredible numbers. They migrate in the spring and they nest here. And so in the Outer Harbor, for instance, we have a lot of these places that we're trying to protect for birds throughout the Niagara River, globally significant, important bird area, trying to protect places for birds and pollinators. This bird winters in the tropics, Central America. Some of the birds that we have here winter in the Amazon, and they come up here and they breed and they have babies. And so we protect places here that helps protect the biodiversity of places like the Amazon. And also the Arctic. We have birds that come here in the winter that summer in the Arctic. They come here because this is the first safe harbor. It's warm. It's like they're Miami. They go back north in the spring and summer. So we're kind of a crossroads of a lot of hemispheric migrating birds. And so it's a really important place to protect for conservation and for birds.
Yeah, and that's fascinating that we get the tropical migrants in the summer and the birds from the Arctic in the winter. There's a lot of opportunities to see birds that are different than the ones typically in our backyards if we have the right habitat to attract them, right?
It's amazing how many species of birds we can see in Western New York, in the Great Lakes, in the Niagara region, all year long. They use this area all year long, and different habitats, surely, for different kinds of birds. You get shorebirds, you get hawks, you've got grassland birds, you get forest birds. We got them all here. You can find them. In a few minutes, we might be talking about a bird festival that I'm working on too. These are swallows. These are barn swallows, and these are some of the birds that actually winter in the Amazon basin. This is a mother feeding 2 chicks at Times Beach Nature Reserve. We had over 5,000 baby swallows born in the Outer Harbor last year. That went back to the Amazon. We think they made it. We hope they made it, although there are bird declines. But right here, this is what we do to protect places. And again, Pollinator Conservation Association through the eyes of pollinators. But we think about these guys, because among other things, these guys eat pollinators. So if we provide a lot of pollinators, they'll have plenty of food.
And is she feeding them a caterpillar there?
Yes.
Yeah. And so native plants can be really good hosts for caterpillars and other insects that are food for birds, especially the baby birds.
Well, native plants are really essential. And that's why it's so great to have this Western New York Native Plant Collaborative. You've probably all heard the Doug Tallamy stories about how a native plant or a native ecosystem might host 9,000 species as opposed to an invasive system like a cattail marsh. A native cattail marsh, 9,000 species, an invasive system of Phragmites, maybe 9 species. Wow. Same goes for single plants and single trees. One of his stories is, oak trees. How many insects does an oak tree create? And turns out hundreds of thousands. And if you have 5 oak trees, you're feeding a lot of animals. This is an image of monarch butterflies. Monarch butterflies are big in this area. Traditionally, we're part of the migration route. This was a photograph taken at Times Beach. We've worked for years to create habitat at Times Beach for monarchs. These happen to be fall migrants. They're roosting in the cottonwood trees. The last couple of years, we've had thousands and thousands and thousands of these beautiful monarchs coming in September and October and roosting at Times Beach. And that's habitat we've created for them. Because when we first started working here 15, 20 years ago, there was no food, there was no habitat at all for fall migrating monarchs or breeding monarchs. We planted lots of milkweed. I know a lot of people watching this have also. We also just have protected habitat. So the monarchs, which are still being evaluated for the endangered species list, are still in trouble. We're working hard here in Western New York to create habitat and a good, safe conservation thing for these beautiful pollinators. Everyone knows what these are.
Yeah, and that's a lot of that is through the efforts of the Pollinator Conservation Association, correct?
Well, we like to think we're leaders, but the thing is, we have everybody that we're helping to be leaders. Every organization, every gardener, every person, every agency. Part of our mission is to lift all boats. We want to let people know why this is important. We want to let people know how to do it. We'll do it for people if they want to hire us. But our mission is advocacy. Try to lift everyone's boat. And I'm glad to say we're leaders there. But we want to promote leadership at all ages, at all levels, and it's a big job because you probably know the Earth is kind of in trouble. So are these beautiful insects that we're looking at.
And seeing this picture on the screen reminds me What time of year do the monarchs typically migrate through our area?
Well, they come through in this late spring, and usually by late April, early May, you're going to start seeing them. They're coming up from Mexico. They start going back south, and some of them stay here and breed. Some of them go further north. Starting in mid to late September and going through October, sometimes even into November, you'll just see waves and waves and waves of monarchs that are traveling south, heading to a small mountain region in central Mexico where they overwinter. All these monarchs go to the same place. It's a very small region, which is threatened. So what we try to do is protect and conserve their pathways as we learn where they go, and hope that their winter sanctuary stays protected. And that's always threatened also.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the projects that we've done, Pollinator Conservation Association. This is on Buffalo's Outer Harbor. It's at Buffalo Harbor State Park. We are introducing kind of a sand dune, marshy complex concept to what is a filled-in area near the parking lot at Buffalo Harbor State Park, right across from Tiff Nature Preserve. This photograph is from about 2 years ago. So we started introducing plants that were kind of what were there 100 years ago, 500 years ago. Sand complex. We planted, marram grass and we've got about 40 species of asters and goldenrods and milkweeds and other plants. And it's beginning to be a really neat native plant establishment, which is also, it's a good lesson. People can go there and see it and see how busy it is, how active it is. All around this site, it's a desert. Our site is full of pollinators, full of birds, full of beetles, sometimes full of deer. But so yeah, this is a site on Buffalo's Outer Harbor, Buffalo Harbor State Park, right at the entrance. I think we got one more picture of that.
We do, yes.
Yeah, this is just another view. We've created a beach path. This again was taken 2 years ago. The beach path is much more evolved now. And this week we're actually doing a little more work on it. It gives you an aesthetic of feeling like you're on the coast, on the beach, rather than in a big parking lot with lawns all around you. So it gives it's, besides just the beauty of nature and the important science of biodiversity, is a beach aesthetic that we all, really like, I think.
Yeah, I love that attention to detail, the path that really makes you feel like you are on a dune. That's pretty cool around the beach.
You can walk down.
And I said this to you the other day, but I have to go check this out. I didn't know it was there. And I'm really fascinated by this project, and I want to go see it.
I'd love to host you down there. So anytime.
Okay.
This is another site that we've done. This is on Ohio and Louisiana Street in Buffalo. And it's just a site that we, 2 years ago, just put a lot of sort of meadow plants, these tall sunflowers. Anyway, this is about a 3/4 of an acre site. And man, it's been full of, last year we discovered, I think, 19 individual species of bees, 9 of which we did not know existed out there before. We thought they did, but we found them here. I think we had 30 species of butterflies, all sorts of species of birds coming through here. Just the other day, I was down there talking to one of the people we work with, and warbling vireo came to a branch not 5 feet from my head and just sang. And
Wow.
it felt like it was singing to me, and I was pretty happy because not only do I hug trees, but sometimes I like to brag, I think trees hug me. That's just.
Well, they do when they put vireos over your head to sing, don't they?
Yep. Well, so we're talking about the Outer Harbor a little bit. Did you want to ask, or do you want me to just jump in and talk about this?
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So when we first were told several years ago they're going to develop a new community out there, new condos, mixed use, there's football stadium talk, there was all sorts of different talk. We said, no, we want to keep it green. We want to make it important from the perspective of biodiversity and conservation. And so we took this concept and sort of drew these rough maps describing what we thought should be where. And right in the center here, where it says Bell Slip Nature Reserve, that's that little sand barren habitat that I was telling you about, the spotted bee balm. Times Beach Nature Reserve is all the way to the right. The good news is that the state has now decided that they're not going to have condos down there. There are still a few private developers that are trying to develop it, but the state-owned land, for the moment, they seem to be buying into the green and nature recreational aspect of the Outer Harbor. And so I think it's a big win for us. It shows that we can do things if we put our minds to it. The other part of this, besides being biodiversity, is the Outer Harbor is really the first barrier when we have storms on Lake Erie, and we have a lot of storms on Lake Erie. We have historic high water levels now. We have these tremendous seiches. Seiches are like tsunamis, except they're caused by the wind. Lake Erie is like a bathtub. And we've had terrible storms. We had Halloween of last year, a big seiche, high water levels, and it destroyed so much of the breakwalls around Buffalo. All the shorelines in Lake Erie and Lake Ontario were damaged. Microbursts in the Niagara River caused damage to places like Frog Island. And Times Beach Nature Preserve got devastated. And so not only is it inappropriate to put houses out there, it's one of the arguments we used about the Queen City Landing site. It's just not an appropriate place because that site was underwater in that storm. We've had 12 big storms since that date, last Halloween, that have all brought with them big floods. We think the Outer Harbor should be more resilient and help provide a barrier because downtown Buffalo is just half a mile behind what you're looking at here. And so we're talking about creating a resilient area. Not only is it about biodiversity, it's about saving lives. In good times, this is a beautiful area. You can go out there and recreate, you can see nature, you can see the sky day and night. Bad times, if we do it right, it'll save our lives.
And that's the role that wetlands historically played before we hardened our shorelines and filled them in. They were able to absorb the water that was being blown across the lake or high tides and hurricanes and all that. And we lost that ability for nature to absorb the impacts of storms. So by greening it up, I think it's a great idea to bring back some of that natural resiliency to our Lake Erie shoreline.
You know, Molly, that's exactly right. There's a couple of secrets about Lake Erie that people don't know about. Our end of Lake Erie, right where Buffalo is now, it was once a big sponge. I mean, it was marshes, it was sand dunes. We have one of the biggest cattail marshes in North America, stretching from near Hamburg past Grand Island, a big sponge. The other end of Lake Erie, near Cleveland, also had a big sponge called the Black Swamp. It was a black marsh, one of the largest marshes in the world. They're gone. It's all filled in, the hardened shorelines, as you mentioned. So when the lake does rock, when storms come in, there's no place to go except over the top and into valuable property, and it kills people. We can do better. So this is the watersheds of the Great Lakes. So when we talk about where do we want to look at from all sorts of perspectives, conservation, pollution, urbanization, the watersheds are really an important way to think about how we design and develop and actually do things. So this map just shows watershed boundaries.
And the green, that's all the land mass that drains into the Great Lakes, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, yeah, yep. It's really interesting, down behind Buffalo in the drainage basin, Pennsylvania, that's very close to Lake Erie. In fact, we have a project we're working on with the Western New York Land Conservancy, College Lodge, which is right on the watershed, right on the boundary. Part of that property drains into Lake Erie. The other part of it drains into the Mississippi Basin, right nearby. I mean, it's half an hour drive from where I live in South Buffalo, but it's fragile. The other side's important too.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we talk about is the Niagara River Greenway, and the yellow lines you see here kind of show where the Niagara River is. The actual U.S. Greenway is only on the U.S. side. The Canadian folks don't have the same kind of protection yet, but they'd like to. That in the center of those yellow lines is the Niagara River globally important, significant bird area. Birds, like I said, come from all over the globe here. They congregate in huge numbers, and they breed here, and they winter here. But it's also just a good natural corridor. I mean, biodiversity is so rich in that corridor. It's historically one of the richest places in North America. It's also now, the river is a Ramsar site, which is a wetlands of international significance. This only happened last summer, 2 summers ago, because of the biodiversity of life here, including life in the water and life along the edges. So that's where we live. And you think about the watersheds in the Great Lakes. This is so important. And so my work has been to look at that greenway, a lot of people's work, and to try to figure out what's the plan. How do we keep it green? How do we make it biodiverse? How do we make it resilient? And so another idea has come up recently since these last storms. Actually, it's an older idea, and I'll tell you why that is. But where the red lines are, we're trying to think of resilient zones. So think of the water side of those red lines as a place where we can design resiliency. Now that environmental resiliency, social resiliency, economic resiliency, big ideas, but it's the kind of planning and action that we have to take because we can. And this is a great time to do it. I mean, Earth is in such trouble now. There are solutions. We can think about creating these kinds of resiliency areas. This idea first came to me from a friend of mine, Wangari Maathai, who's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. She came to Buffalo a bunch of years ago, and I got to hang out with her. And she told me about her work in Africa. She got the Nobel Peace Prize because of developing greenbelt tree plantings all across Africa. And wow, so she told me about it. She told me I should do it here. And when I said where, she looked at a map with me and said, start with the shorelines. So here it is several years later, and in honor of Wangari Maathai, who called me her brother, which was pretty nice, and it was genuine. She's gone now, but so this is an idea that was stimulated by her, and it's coming up to us, back to us, and so creating this resiliency zone is, I think, where we're going to be going forward.
And it sounds like a great idea considering all the shoreline storms and damage that you were talking about in one of the last slides too.
We can do better, and we have to. I mean, this is not going to get better unless we take control of it, and we can do that. There's so many things we can know, so many things we do know, and there's so many things we can do. We just have to have the will to do it. And if we're going to save the Earth for future generations, or save it for a healthy human population, we've got to do things like this. So this is an interesting poster.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier. It's a weekend-long event in February, I believe.
Yeah, so 3 years ago, actually about 20 years ago, we started a gull festival. Gulls are one of the ornithological wonders of this area, especially in the wintertime. They migrate through here. The winter has birds on the Niagara River that I think I mentioned earlier come from the Arctic. And this is the first open water that they see usually. And so it's like they're Miami of the South, and they hang out here, and we have waterfowl and swans, and we have gulls. And in February, the river is full of birds, and it's one of the most amazing places on Earth to see birds. And so we decided a few years ago, let's restart this whole winter bird festival idea that was designed to celebrate gulls and move it into other stuff like the waterfowl. And what's really beautiful about it is we do it on Halloween, not Halloween, we do it on Valentine's Day. And there's a romantic theme because the waterfowl that are here in breeding plumage, and they're doing their dances with each other, and it's really fun to watch. So we put a romantic theme on it. It is the middle of winter, February 14th, 15th, but it's a great time to get outside. It's a great time to see the most amazing birds you'll ever see. And it's really what puts us on the map scientifically, this incredible bird population that's here. Birds in Niagara, a winter celebration. And the other thing that's really important about it is that it's an international festival. This, when we started this, we had Canadian partners who were interested. Last year, they jumped in with both feet. It's now the only international bird festival in North America. And we're going to build it. And it's going to be an important educational tool and awareness. And we're going to use it to save conservation, save birds, save pollinators, educate people, and raise some money.
And that's another beautiful photo. So if people want to learn more about this event, they can go to the website birdsontheniagara.org, correct?
Yep, that's right, birdsonniagara.org.
Okay. Well, hey, Jay, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today, and not only learning about what you've accomplished to date, which is very impressive, but your fantastic plans on how to continue the momentum and to make our community even better. And, I really appreciate the hard work of you and your colleagues. If people want to learn more about your efforts, is there a website they should visit?
PollinatorConservationAssociation.org. There you go, right there. I appreciate your kind words. This is an important time to be alive, I think. It's really a good time to be alive. I mean, there's so much stress going on in the world. There's so many horrible things going on, but we're humans. And besides the fact that we may be part of the problem, we can be the solution. And so this is a great time to be thinking about these things and, working with you, Molly, and people in the native plant Collaborative and these other groups has been such a wonderful opportunity to have these great conversations. So thank you.
Thank you. And I hope our listeners will join us for another one of these conversations in the Let's Talk Native Plants series. And thanks again, Jay.